Malik Williams stands in the empty airport terminal, his phone screen displaying a paused video that's been viewed 17 million times. His twin daughter's college acceptance letters lie forgotten in his briefcase. 12 hours ago, he was just a CEO heading to a university tour. Now he controls America's skies. Before we dive into this shocking story, where are you watching from today? Hit that like button if you've ever experienced discrimination while traveling, and subscribe to hear more stories of justice and resilience. Now let's see how one family's college visit turned into a nationwide movement. Malik Williams woke before his alarm that Thursday morning. After 26 years building his tech company Data Edge from a garage startup to a Fortune 500 enterprise, early rising was embedded in his DNA. But today's 5 a.m. awakening wasn't about quarterly reports or investor meetings. Today was about his daughter's futures. "Girls, 30 minutes until we leave," he called, knocking softly on the twins' bedroom door before heading to the kitchen. Jasmine and Zara Williams, 17-year-old high school seniors with identical warm brown complexions but distinctly different personalities, had been preparing for this trip for weeks. Their matching suitcases sat by the front door, packed with everything they'd need for university tours of Howard, Spelman, and Morehouse. As black girls excelling in predominantly white schools their entire lives, they were eager to experience historically black colleges and universities. Malik poured himself coffee while his wife Monique finished packing snacks for the journey. 23 years of marriage had created an easy rhythm between them. She handed him a bagel without asking. "Remember our first apartment?" Monique asked, smiling as she sealed a container of homemade trail mix. "When we could barely afford ramen noodles while you were coding all night and I was studying for the bar exam?" Malik laughed. "3 rooms including the bathroom, and we thought we'd made it big." "Now look at us," Monique said, gesturing around their spacious kitchen with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. "Taking our daughters to tour colleges we couldn't have dreamed of attending." The journey hadn't been easy. As one of few black students in computer science at Georgia Tech in the 1990s, Malik faced professors who assumed he was only there because of affirmative action, despite graduating high school as valedictorian. When starting Data Edge, multiple venture capitalists passed on funding his company until a former classmate took a chance on him. Even now, as CEO of a company with 5,000 employees, he sometimes walked into meetings where people assumed he was part of the janitorial staff. These memories made this college tour even more significant. His daughters would face obstacles, but he'd made sure they had opportunities he never did. The twins bounced into the kitchen, matching energy if not style. Jasmine wore her hair in neat braids and dressed in a crisp button-up shirt and jeans, already looking like the lawyer she aspired to be. Zara's natural curls framed her face, complementing her graphic t-shirt featuring women in STEM. "Dad, did you print our itinerary?" Jasmine asked, always the organizer. "In my briefcase along with your acceptance letters," Malik replied. "Though they're just formalities at this point. Both of you have full scholarship offers from all 3 schools." "I still can't believe Howard's computer science department wants to name a scholarship after me," Zara said, grabbing an apple from the fruit bowl. "Because your algorithm for predicting weather patterns won the National Science Fair," Monique reminded her. "You girls are extraordinary." The family loaded into Malik's Tesla Model X for the hour-long drive to Memphis International Airport. The early morning streets were quiet as they left their suburban neighborhood. Malik used the drive to ask about their expectations. "What are you most looking forward to seeing?" he asked, glancing in the rearview mirror. "The law library at Howard," Jasmine said without hesitation. "Did you know Thurgood Marshall studied there? I want to sit where he sat, read where he read." "Since when did you decide on civil rights law?" Zara teased. "Last week it was corporate law." "Since I watched that documentary on the Emmett Till case," Jasmine replied softly. "Some things haven't changed as much as we think." Malik exchanged a knowing glance with Monique. They'd sheltered their daughters as much as possible, but couldn't protect them from reality forever. "For me, it's the robotics lab at Spelman," Zara said, changing the subject. Their partnership with Georgia Tech gives access to equipment most undergrads never touch. The conversation flowed easily as they discussed campus life, potential majors, and dorm options. By the time they parked at the airport, everyone was buzzing with excitement. 2 hours before our flight, Malik noted as they entered the terminal. Perfect timing. They checked their bags and proceeded through security without incident. Malik's frequent flyer status granted them access to the priority lane, and his platinum credit card opened the doors to the airline lounge where they enjoyed a light breakfast. First-class tickets to Washington, D.C., lounge access, then private campus tours, Jasmine said, spreading cream cheese on a bagel. "You're spoiling us, Dad." Malik smiled. "You've both earned it. Besides, DataEdge provides the reservation software for SkyRoute Airlines. They're one of our biggest clients." As boarding time approached, the family gathered their belongings and headed to Gate A7. Malik checked his watch, satisfied they were right on schedule. None of them could have predicted what would happen next. First-class passengers for SkyRoute Airlines Flight 1382 to Washington, D.C., "We are now ready to begin boarding," announced a voice over the intercom system. The Williams family approached the gate where a blonde woman in her mid-30s sat behind the counter. Her name tag read Heather Reed. She glanced up as they approached, her smile faltering almost imperceptibly before returning to her professional demeanor. "Boarding passes and IDs, please," she requested, extending her hand. Malik presented 4 first-class tickets and their identification. Heather studied them with unusual intensity, flipping the boarding passes over, examining the security features under the counter light. She then scrutinized each ID, comparing photos to faces with exaggerated care. "Is there a problem?" Malik asked after nearly a minute of silent examination. "Just being thorough, sir," Heather replied without looking up. "Our system has been flagging certain, unusual bookings for additional verification." Behind them, an older white couple approached the priority lane. Another gate agent quickly scanned their passes and waved them through with barely a glance at their identification. "Daddy," Zara whispered, nodding subtly toward the couple now walking down the jetway. "They didn't get the same treatment." Malik nodded almost imperceptibly. He'd experienced this before, but had hoped his daughters wouldn't have to face it so young. "I see you're in first class," Heather continued, her tone suggesting this was somehow suspicious. "May I ask what brings you to Washington?" Before Malik could answer, Jasmine stepped forward. "College tours, ma'am. We've been accepted to Howard University." "With scholarships," Zara added, her chin slightly raised. "I need to see some additional verification for these tickets," Heather declared, ignoring the girls. "Do you have the credit card these were purchased with?" Malik produced his platinum card, matching the one used for booking. Heather examined it, then turned to her computer, typing rapidly. "I'm also going to need to see proof of your relationship to these minors," she added. "Excuse me?" Malik's voice remained calm, but his posture stiffened. "That's not standard protocol for domestic flights. They're 17, not unaccompanied minors, and I've shown you identification for everyone." "It's company policy for certain situations," Heather insisted vaguely. By now, other first-class passengers, predominantly white, had begun boarding with minimal scrutiny. Some averted their eyes from the unfolding scene, while others stared openly. Jasmine discreetly removed her phone from her pocket and began recording. "I'm going to need to speak with your supervisor," Malik stated firmly. Heather's mouth tightened as she picked up a phone. Minutes later, a balding white man in his early 40s approached. His name tag identified him as Bradley Cooper, gate supervisor. "What seems to be the issue here?" he asked, addressing Heather rather than the Williams family. "These passengers have been flagged for additional security verification," Heather explained. "I'm following procedure." Bradley turned to Malik, his expression neutral. "Sir, we randomly select passengers for additional security screening. It's nothing personal." "Random?" Malik raised an eyebrow. We've been watching randomly selected passengers board for the past 5 minutes. The only difference I can see is the color of our skin. Bradley's face reddened. Sir, I assure you that race has nothing to do with our security protocols. Then explain why my family needs additional verification while others don't, Malik challenged. I'm a SkyRoute Platinum Elite member with over 1 million miles. I've never needed additional verification on any of my previous flights. The boarding area had grown quieter, with nearby passengers pretending not to listen while catching every word. Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding, Bradley offered. But our computer system has flagged these tickets, and we need to follow protocol. The flight is nearly full, but we might be able to accommodate you in economy class, or on the next flight to Washington in 3 hours. Malik's jaw tightened. Jasmine and Zara exchanged glances, their excitement about the college tour evaporating. A middle-aged white woman in line behind them shifted uncomfortably. This isn't right, she murmured, but didn't intervene further. Our first-class tickets were confirmed weeks ago, Malik stated. Your computer system didn't have any issues taking my money then. Sir, if you continue to be disruptive, I'll need to call security, Bradley warned, his hand drifting toward the phone. Jasmine's phone continued recording as Zara stepped closer to her sister, both watching their father navigate a situation they'd seen before but never quite this blatantly. I'm not being disruptive, Malik replied evenly. I'm asking why my family is being treated differently than other passengers. Is it because we're black? The blunt question hung in the air. Several nearby passengers looked away in embarrassment, while others watched with interest. Bradley's face flushed deeper. That accusation is completely inappropriate, he sputtered. We're simply following security protocols. What specific protocol requires additional verification for a family traveling together with valid identification and tickets? Malik pressed. I'm not at liberty to discuss security measures, Bradley replied stiffly. The final boarding call echoed through the terminal as the last first-class passengers disappeared down the jetway, all having been processed without additional scrutiny. It looks like we've run out of time for your verification, Malik observed. Are you denying us boarding on this flight? As I mentioned, we can try to accommodate you in economy, or on a later flight, Bradley repeated. So you're bumping us from the first-class seats we paid for without explanation, Malik clarified. Is that correct? The gate agent and supervisor exchanged uncomfortable glances. In the background, the jetway door closed with a definitive thunk. I'm afraid boarding is complete, Heather announced with poorly concealed satisfaction. For your next flight, I suggest arriving earlier to allow time for any necessary verification procedures. What happened next would change everything, not just for the Williams family, but for air travel across America. I believe we've established that this isn't about time or verification procedures, Malik stated calmly, though the muscle twitching in his jaw betrayed his anger. This is about prejudice. Sir, that's a serious accusation, Bradley responded, straightening his tie. SkyRoute Airlines does not discriminate against. Save it, Malik interrupted. My family and I have been standing here for 15 minutes while you've boarded every other first-class passenger with barely a glance at their documentation. Several nearby passengers lingered, witnessing the confrontation. An elderly white woman shook her head in disapproval, though it wasn't clear toward whom. A middle-aged black businessman nodded slightly in Malik's direction, a silent acknowledgement of a familiar experience. I'm going to give you one more opportunity to correct this situation, Malik continued. After that, I'll need to take more serious measures. Are you threatening me? Bradley asked, reaching for the phone. I'll need to call airport security. Jasmine continued recording discreetly as Zara stepped forward. Dad, maybe we should just take the next flight, she suggested, her voice tight with disappointment. No, honey. Some things need to be addressed directly, Malik replied before turning back to Bradley. You should know who you're dealing with before making that call. He reached into his suit pocket and produced a business card, sliding it across the counter. Malik Williams, CEO of DataEdge Technologies. The company that provides the reservation and boarding software your airline depends on. Bradley's face drained of color as he stared at the card. Heather leaned over to look, her eyes widening. Perhaps I should call Thomas Reynolds, Malik suggested, pulling out his phone. Your chief operations officer and my golf partner. We were just discussing the renewal of our contract last weekend. The atmosphere at the gate shifted immediately. Bradley snatched up the phone at the counter, turning away to speak in hushed tones. Heather suddenly became intensely interested in her computer screen. While they waited, a young black couple approached Malik. Sir, we couldn't help overhearing, the woman said quietly. The same thing happened to us last month at this airport. They made us miss our flight to our own wedding. This is the third time it's happened to me this year, added the businessman who had nodded earlier. Always at this gate, always with the same agents. Jasmine, still recording, turned to capture these testimonials. More passengers began sharing similar experiences, creating an impromptu community of witnesses in the middle of the terminal. Bradley returned moments later, accompanied by a harried-looking woman in a SkyRoute management uniform. Her name tag identified her as Patricia Walters, Customer Service Manager. Mr. Williams, I sincerely apologize for this misunderstanding, Patricia began, her voice smooth with practiced contrition. We've arranged for you and your family to board immediately. The flight crew will hold the aircraft, and we've upgraded your family to our premium first-class service with complimentary champagne and... The flight has already closed the doors, Malik pointed out. And my daughters are minors, so champagne isn't appropriate. More importantly, this isn't a misunderstanding to be resolved with superficial gestures. Sir, we're trying to accommodate you, Patricia insisted. And everyone else who's been discriminated against. Malik gestured to the growing group of passengers who had shared similar stories. Is there premium champagne for all of them too? Security personnel arrived at the gate, two uniformed officers approaching cautiously. Bradley gestured toward Malik, but Patricia quickly intercepted them, explaining the situation in hushed tones. The officers remained present but kept their distance. Mr. Williams, please, Patricia lowered her voice. We can discuss compensation and policy reviews, but let's get your family on this flight first. That opportunity has passed, Malik replied firmly. And my daughters have captured quite enough content for today. For the first time, Patricia noticed Jasmine's phone. Her professional smile faltered. Recording isn't permitted in secure areas of the airport, she began. Actually, Memphis International Airport policy allows recording in public areas, including gates, as long as it doesn't interfere with security procedures, Jasmine corrected politely. I researched airport policies for my debate team presentation last semester. Zara checked her own phone and nudged her sister. Jazz, your video already has 3,000 views. Someone shared it to Black Travel Matters. Patricia's face paled. Mr. Williams, please. Let's discuss this privately in our executive lounge. Malik shook his head. This didn't happen privately. The solution won't be private either. He turned to his daughters. Girls, it seems our trip is delayed. Let's go somewhere more comfortable to make some calls. As they gathered their carry-on bags, more passengers approached to express support and share contact information. What had begun as a routine boarding procedure had transformed into the beginnings of a movement, with the Williams family at its center. The family walked away from Gate A7 with security trailing at a distance, uncertain whether to treat them as victims or troublemakers. Behind them, Patricia frantically dialed numbers on her phone while Bradley and Heather huddled together, their faces reflecting the dawning realization that they had just made a catastrophic mistake. SkyRoute Airlines was about to learn a painful lesson about the consequences of discrimination in the digital age, and Malik Williams was just getting started. The Williams family settled into a quiet corner of the Memphis International Airport's premium lounge. The irony wasn't lost on Malik, their SkyRoute first-class tickets granted them access to this exclusive space, even as they'd been denied boarding on the actual flight. "Girls, I need to make some calls," Malik said, his voice steady despite the anger still simmering beneath the surface. "This is going to change our plans for the day." Jasmine was already busy on her phone, monitoring the social media response to her video. "Dad, it's at 20,000 views already. People are tagging SkyRoute and calling for boycotts." Zara looked up from her laptop. "I've started a timeline documenting everything that happened, with timestamps. And I'm downloading all the security footage I can access from public cameras in the terminal." Malik nodded approvingly. His daughters had always been resourceful, but watching them channel their frustration into strategic action filled him with pride despite the circumstances. He stepped away to make his first call, to Thomas Reynolds, SkyRoute's Chief Operations Officer. "Malik. I just got out of a meeting. What's up?" Thomas answered cheerfully, unaware of the situation. "Thomas, we have a serious problem," Malik replied. "My family was just denied boarding on one of your flights in what appears to be a clear case of racial discrimination." The line went silent for a moment. "What? That's... Are you certain?" "Absolutely certain. We have video evidence, multiple witnesses, and testimonials from other passengers who've experienced the same treatment at your Memphis hub." "Malik, I'm so sorry. This isn't what SkyRoute stands for. Let me handle this immediately." "It's beyond that point, Thomas," Malik interrupted. "This isn't an isolated incident. It's a pattern, and it happened to the wrong family today." Malik outlined the incident while Thomas listened in growing horror. By the end of the call, Thomas was promising emergency meetings, immediate investigation, and personal involvement from SkyRoute CEO. But Malik wasn't finished. His next call was to his own executive team at Data Edge. "I need an emergency board call in 15 minutes, he instructed his chief of staff. "And get legal on the line. We need to review the emergency termination clauses in our SkyRoute contract." The $300 million contract between Data Edge and SkyRoute Airlines provided critical software infrastructure that managed everything from reservations to boarding passes and flight operations. While immediate termination would be financially costly for Data Edge as well, Malik was prepared to take that hit. As he finished the call, Jasmine approached with wide eyes. "Dad, our video just hit 100,000 views. People are sharing their own stories with the hashtag denied at the gate." "Good," Malik replied. "The more visibility, the better." His phone buzzed with an incoming call from an unknown number. Malik answered to find himself speaking directly with Richard Harrington, the 61-year-old CEO of SkyRoute Airlines. "Mr. Williams, this is Richard Harrington. I want to personally apologize for the inexcusable treatment your family received today." "Apologies without action are meaningless, Mr. Harrington," Malik replied coolly. "I agree completely. That's why I've already suspended the gate agents involved pending investigation, and I'm on my way to Memphis personally. In the meantime, I've arranged for a private jet to transport your family to Washington to continue your college tour." "A private solution to a public problem," Malik observed. "That misses the point entirely." He could almost hear Harrington's frustration through the phone. "What exactly do you want, Mr. Williams?" "Accountability and systemic change. Not just for my family, but for everyone who's been subjected to this treatment." The conversation continued for several minutes, with Harrington making increasingly generous offers while Malik remained firm in his demands for structural reforms. Meanwhile, airport officials had gathered outside the lounge, requesting a meeting. The local news had picked up the story, and reporters were assembling in the terminal. Zara looked worried as she watched the commotion through the lounge's glass walls. "Dad, this is getting really big, really fast. Are we ready for this kind of attention?" Malik put his hand on her shoulder. "It's never comfortable being at the center of these moments, but sometimes that's where we need to be." Jasmine nodded in agreement, though her expression revealed mixed emotions. "Our college tours, she began. Might be delayed, Malik acknowledged, but this is an education of another kind. His phone buzzed again, this time with a call from Monique, who had seen the viral video from home. Malik, she said immediately, I saw what happened. The girl's okay. They're handling it like champs, he assured her. But things are escalating quickly. Good, Monique replied firmly. Don't back down. I'm looking at SkyRoute's discrimination complaints history right now. There's a pattern going back years that they've ignored. This could force actual change. As a lawyer specializing in employment law, Monique understood the leverage they had. She offered strategic advice on documentation and next steps. While they talked, Malik received an email notification that his data edge board had unanimously approved investigating the emergency contract termination process with SkyRoute. What would you do if you were in Malik's position? Would you accept the private jet and move on with your trip, or stand firm and demand systemic change? Comment number 1 if you think Malik should prioritize his daughter's college tour, or number 2 if you believe this is the moment to take a stand. Like this video if you've ever witnessed discrimination in public spaces, and subscribe to follow this family's fight for justice. The Williams family now faced a critical decision point. Would they accept the airline's attempts at private appeasement, or would they use this moment to push for lasting change? How far would SkyRoute go to contain this PR nightmare? And what would happen when a tech CEO with the power to ground flights decided enough was enough? The answers were about to unfold in dramatic fashion. Malik Williams sat in an executive conference room at the Memphis International Airport, surrounded by his daughters, SkyRoute officials, and airport management. The mahogany table couldn't mask the tension filling the air. Mr. Williams, I understand your frustration, said Victoria Nelson, the airport's executive director, a stern woman in her early 50s. But surely we can resolve this without further disruption. Malik checked his watch. We've been discussing this for 45 minutes, and I haven't heard a single concrete commitment to systemic change. Just apologies and offers of special treatment for my family. Richard Harrington, SkyRoute CEO who had flown in on a corporate jet, leaned forward. We're prepared to implement sensitivity training for all staff immediately. Sensitivity training treats the symptom, not the disease, Malik replied. Your employees didn't fail to be sensitive today. They followed what they believed were acceptable procedures. Jasmine, who had been quietly taking notes, spoke up. According to the testimonials we've gathered, black passengers are 15 times more likely to be pulled aside for verification at this airport than white passengers. That's not a sensitivity issue. That's systemic. The airline and airport executives exchanged uncomfortable glances. None had expected to be challenged by a teenager with statistics. Ms. Nelson, Zara added, we've collected 67 accounts in just the past 3 hours from passengers who experienced similar treatment. Many have video evidence. Victoria Nelson cleared her throat. Without formal complaints filed through proper channels, these anecdotes don't constitute. Stop, Malik interrupted. My daughters are showing you evidence of a pattern your organizations have willfully ignored. Don't insult their intelligence or mine by dismissing it. He opened his laptop and turned it around. This is the administrative portal for your reservation and boarding systems. As CEO of the company that built and maintains this software, I have emergency access privileges. The airline executive stiffened. Section 7.3 of our contract specifies that Data Edge can restrict system access in the event of misuse or unethical application of our technology, Malik continued. I've just initiated that protocol for all SkyRoute operations at Memphis International. Richard Harrington's face paled. You can't do that. You'll strand thousands of passengers. Actually, I can. And I did. Malik's voice remained steady. The restriction applies only to new reservations and boarding pass generation at this hub. Currently airborne flights and passengers already checked in aren't affected. He closed his laptop. You have approximately 3 hours before the disruption becomes noticeable, and 6 hours before it creates significant delays. That should be enough time to demonstrate genuine commitment to change. The room erupted in protests and threats of legal action. Malik remained calm amid the chaos, his daughters watching with a mixture of awe and anxiety. Outside the conference room, the situation was already spiraling beyond anyone's control. Jasmine's video had surpassed 3 million views. News vans lined the airport entrance. Passengers throughout the terminal were approaching gate agents with phones recording, asking pointed questions about screening procedures. SkyRoute stock had dropped 6% since market opening as the story spread. #denied at the gate was trending nationally on multiple platforms. A junior staff member burst into the conference room, interrupting the heated discussion. "Sir," she addressed Harrington, "we have multiple news crews requesting statements, and the Department of Transportation has called twice." Richard Harrington loosened his tie slightly. "Tell them we're handling the situation internally." "It's too late for that," Malik stated. "This isn't internal anymore." As if to emphasize his point, the conference room door opened again to admit several reporters who had somehow gained access to the secure area. Camera lights illuminated the startled faces of the executives. "Mr. Williams," called one reporter, "can you comment on the allegations of systematic racial profiling at this airport?" Malik glanced at his daughters, who nodded in silent agreement. He stood and approached the cameras. "What my family experienced today is not isolated or accidental," he began. "It's the result of policies and practices that disproportionately target black travelers and other people of color. We've gathered dozens of testimonials confirming this pattern." He continued with measured precision, outlining the incident and the broader implications. As he spoke, airport security personnel arrived but made no move to remove the media, clearly uncertain about how to proceed in this unprecedented situation. "As CEO of DataEdge Technologies, I've temporarily restricted SkyRoute's access to our reservation and boarding systems at this hub until they demonstrate meaningful commitment to equitable treatment of all passengers." The revelation sent shockwaves through the room. Victoria Nelson whispered urgently to an assistant while Richard Harrington stepped forward to damage control. "SkyRoute Airlines categorically denies any pattern of discrimination," Harrington stated to the cameras. "What happened to the Williams family was an unfortunate misunderstanding that we're working to resolve." "It wasn't a misunderstanding," interrupted a new voice. All heads turned to see a middle-aged white woman in a SkyRoute uniform standing in the doorway. "My name is Linda Pearson. I've been a gate agent here for 12 years, and we absolutely have protocols that result in discriminatory treatment." The room fell silent as Linda stepped forward, visibly nervous but determined. 3 years ago, we received training on identifying unusual, first-class passengers who might have obtained tickets fraudulently. The examples used in training were almost exclusively people of color. The cameras swung toward her as Richard Harrington attempted to interject. Linda continued, her voice growing stronger. "Gate agents are evaluated partly on how many potential fraud cases they identify. It creates incentives to profile passengers based on race. I've reported my concerns through proper channels multiple times. Nothing changed." The press conference had transformed into something none of the executives had anticipated. As Linda continued to detail specific policies, more SkyRoute employees appeared, some adding their own testimonials while others watched nervously from a distance. In the operations center of Memphis International Airport, the effects of Malik's system restriction were becoming apparent. Staff members stared at screens displaying error messages when they attempted to process new boarding passes. Supervisors frantically called IT support, unaware that the issue couldn't be resolved through normal channels. Back in the conference room, Richard Harrington had abandoned his initial defensive posture. The combined pressure of media presence, employee whistleblowers, and the technical disruption had forced a strategic retreat. "Mr. Williams," he said quietly during a break in the questioning, "what specifically would it take to restore system access?" Malik handed him a document that Zara and Jasmine had prepared while the chaos unfolded around them. This outlines the minimum requirements: independent audit of all security protocols, transparent reporting of passenger screening demographics, compensation fund for affected travelers, and immediate suspension of any policy that results in disproportionate targeting. Harrington scanned the document, his expression unreadable. This would take weeks to implement. The principles can be committed to immediately, Malik replied. Implementation can follow a reasonable timeline with verification milestones. Meanwhile, throughout the terminal, the story continued to spread. Passengers formed impromptu discussion groups, sharing experiences and recording testimonials. What had begun as one family's stand against discrimination had catalyzed a movement that transcended a single incident. By late afternoon, as delayed flights created a ripple effect throughout SkyRoute's network, the airline's leadership faced a stark choice: continue fighting a battle they were clearly losing or commit to meaningful reform. The decision would affect not just the Williams family's travel plans, but the future of air travel for countless passengers. The fluorescent lights of the airport conference room cast harsh shadows as evening approached. What had begun as an isolated incident had evolved into a full-blown investigation, with the Williams family at its center. Laptops, tablets, and smartphones covered the table as Jasmine and Zara coordinated an increasingly sophisticated response operation. "Dad, look at this," Zara called, turning her computer screen toward Malik. "I've been analyzing the boarding data from Data Edge systems. There's a clear pattern." Malik leaned in, studying the spreadsheet his tech-savvy daughter had compiled. The numbers told a damning story. Black passengers were flagged for additional verification at rates far exceeding statistical probability. First-class tickets purchased by passengers with traditionally black names triggered automatic flags in the system. "This isn't just a Memphis problem," Zara continued. "I'm seeing similar patterns across multiple SkyRoute hubs." Richard Harrington, who had remained in the room despite his PR team's urgent requests to leave, approached cautiously. "May I see that?" Zara turned the screen toward him. The SkyRoute CEO's face grew increasingly pale as he scrolled through the data. We never intended," he began, then stopped. "This is built into our system." "Not explicitly," Malik explained. "But your fraud detection algorithm uses historical data to identify unusual passenger profiles. Since historically, first-class cabins have been predominantly white, the system learned to flag non-white passengers as anomalies. It was a problem Malik had seen repeatedly in his work, algorithms perpetuating human biases while creating the illusion of objective decision-making. Meanwhile, Jasmine had created an online portal where affected travelers could share their experiences. The response had been overwhelming. "We've received over 500 submissions in the past 4 hours," she reported. "Many with video evidence. This isn't just about boarding procedures, it's baggage screening, in-flight treatment, everything." Outside, the media presence had grown. Major networks were broadcasting live from the terminal, where SkyRoute passengers faced increasing delays as the system restrictions prevented normal operations. Victoria Nelson, the airport executive who had initially dismissed the Williams family's concerns, now sat silently reviewing internal documents that her staff had reluctantly provided after journalists filed Emergency Freedom of Information Act requests. "Ms. Nelson," Malik addressed her directly, "did you know about this 2019 memo?" He held up his tablet displaying an internal airport security directive that explicitly instructed staff to apply enhanced scrutiny to passengers who appear inconsistent with typical customer profiles. "That language is unfortunate," she admitted. "But it's standard security protocol." "There's nothing standard about racial profiling," Malik countered. "And this goes far beyond unfortunate language." The conference room door opened as a serious-looking woman in a Department of Transportation identification badge entered, followed by 2 assistants carrying file boxes. "I'm Elaine Winters, DOT Civil Rights Division," she announced. "We've been monitoring complaints about this airport for months. Today's incident accelerated our timeline." She placed a thick folder on the table. We've documented 173 formal complaints regarding discriminatory treatment at Memphis International in the past year alone. 82% involved SkyRoute flights. The revelation silenced the room momentarily. Then, from the back, a voice spoke up. "I have more evidence you should see." All heads turned to see a middle-aged black woman in a SkyRoute uniform standing nervously by the door. She introduced herself as Denise Robinson, a 20-year veteran flight attendant. "I've been documenting incidents for years," she explained, approaching the table with a flash drive. Passengers being reseated away from first class after boarding. Security checks targeting specific passengers. Crew instructions about who to watch more carefully. As Denise's evidence was added to the growing mountain of documentation, another development unfolded on social media. Former SkyRoute employees began sharing their experiences with company training protocols. Screenshots of internal materials showed troubling patterns of racial coding in security guidance. One particularly damaging image showed a training slide titled "Identifying Potential Customer Service Situations," with silhouettes of passengers. Those with distinctly black features were labeled "High Priority for Verification." "This is from our 2020 customer service training," a former employee wrote. "We were taught to watch certain passengers more carefully without explicitly mentioning race. But the images made it clear what they meant." Back in the conference room, Jasmine had connected her laptop to a large display screen. "I've organized the testimonials geographically," she explained, showing a map of the United States with red dots indicating reported incidents. Major SkyRoute hubs glowed with clusters of complaints. As the evidence mounted, Richard Harrington sat with his head in his hands. His company's reputation was imploding in real time, and the systemic nature of the problem made simple damage control impossible. "The algorithm analysis is complete," Zara announced, printing copies of her findings. "The system assigns a verification score based on multiple factors. Having a traditionally African American name increases the score by 32 points. Using cash for any portion of the booking adds 45 points. First-class booking by someone without extensive flight history adds 60 points." She handed copies to everyone at the table. "The threshold for additional verification is 100 points. A black passenger booking a first-class ticket for the first time automatically exceeds the threshold, even without any legitimate security concerns." Victoria Nelson examined the report with growing alarm. "This can't be legal." "It isn't," confirmed Elaine Winters from the DOT. "This constitutes a clear violation of federal anti-discrimination laws in public accommodations." As the implications sank in, Malik's phone buzzed with notifications. SkyRoute stock had dropped 22%, triggering trading circuit breakers. Major corporate clients were publicly announcing suspension of their business travel contracts with the airline. The hashtag #GroundSkyRoute was trending nationally. The Department of Justice had issued a statement announcing a preliminary investigation into potential civil rights violations. Congressional representatives were calling for emergency hearings. What had begun with one family being denied boarding had uncovered a vast infrastructure of algorithmic discrimination affecting thousands of passengers daily. The evidence was too overwhelming to dismiss or explain away. In the midst of the growing crisis, Jasmine approached her father. "Dad," she said quietly, "I've made a decision about law school." Malik looked at his daughter questioningly. "I'm definitely going into civil rights law," she continued. "What happened today, it shouldn't take a tech CEO father to get justice for situations like this." Malik hugged her tightly, feeling a complex mix of pride in his daughter's conviction and sadness that such injustice remained for her generation to fight. As night fell outside the airport windows, the consequences of the day's events continued to ripple outward. For the Williams family, for SkyRoute Airlines, and for air travelers across the country, nothing would be quite the same again. Morning light streamed through the windows of the hotel suite where the Williams family had spent the night. Their college tour remained on hold as the situation with SkyRoute Airlines continued to unfold. Malik sat at the desk, reviewing documents on his laptop while the twins scrolled through their phones, monitoring the public response. "Dad," Jasmine called out, her voice tense. "You need to see this." She handed him her tablet displaying a breaking news story. The headline read, "SkyRoute files emergency injunction against DataEdge CEO for contract violation." Malik scanned the article quickly. SkyRoute's legal team had worked through the night to file court papers claiming he had violated contractual obligations by restricting system access, causing millions in damages. They were seeking immediate restoration of services and substantial financial penalties. "They're trying to shift the narrative," Malik observed, his expression grim but unsurprised. "Make this about contract disputes rather than discrimination." His phone rang, DataEdge's general counsel calling with updates. "They've got a hearing scheduled for 2 p.m. today," the lawyer explained. "Judge Franklin Peterson, conservative, business-friendly. Not ideal for us." "What's our position?" Malik asked, reaching for a notepad. "The contract explicitly allows emergency access restriction in cases where the system is being used in violation of federal law. We're on solid legal ground, but public opinion could shift if they successfully frame you as overreaching." No sooner had he ended the call than Zara held up her phone. "They're saying we edited the video," she said incredulously. A SkyRoute spokesperson on a morning news program was suggesting that the viral footage had been manipulated to remove context that would have justified the additional screening. Comment sections were filling with skeptics questioning the family's motives. "Classic Darvo," Jasmine noted, referencing the defensive strategy: deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. "Next they'll claim we were actually being disruptive." As if on cue, Malik's phone buzzed with a news alert. Bradley Cooper, the gate supervisor from yesterday's incident, had given an interview claiming the Williams family had been confrontational and uncooperative from the start, necessitating additional security measures. "They've requested the airport security footage," Malik's lawyer texted. Conveniently, they're claiming technical issues with the relevant time frames. The twins exchanged concerned glances. The tide seemed to be turning against them with coordinated precision. Malik's phone rang again, an unknown number. He answered cautiously. "Mr. Williams," a male voice began without introduction, "you should know your home address has been posted online by some concerned citizens who believe you're abusing your corporate power." Before Malik could respond, the caller continued, "Check conservative websites if you don't believe me. I'm a DataEdge shareholder who thinks you should know what's coming." The call ended abruptly. Malik immediately phoned Monique, who confirmed police were already responding to suspicious activity near their home. "They're trying to intimidate us," he told his daughters, explaining the situation. "This is how systemic discrimination protects itself, by attacking those who challenge it." Their hotel room phone rang, the front desk informing them that protesters had gathered in the lobby, demanding to speak with the CEO who's stranding passengers. Hotel security advised them to remain in their room while the situation was addressed. Zara's laptop chimed with an email notification from Spelman College's admissions office, "Regarding your scholarship status, important update required." "They're contacting our colleges," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly for the first time since the ordeal began. Jasmine opened her own email to find similar messages from 2 universities. The pressure campaign was extending to their futures. Malik's phone buzzed continuously as DataEdge board members requested emergency discussions. Several expressed concerns about the company's stock price, which had begun falling in response to the legal challenge. Others worried about losing additional clients if SkyRoute successfully painted DataEdge as unreliable. "Maybe we should back down," Zara suggested quietly, looking at the mounting pressure from all sides. "They're going after everything, our home, our college plans, the company." Malik sat between his daughters on the hotel sofa, putting an arm around each of them. "This is how systems of power respond when truly challenged," he explained gently. "First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you. Then you win," Jasmine completed the quote. "But the fighting part is pretty intense." "It is," Malik acknowledged. And if you want to step back from this, we can. Your futures come first. The twins exchanged a look, having one of those silent conversations that only identical twins seemed capable of. No, they said in unison. They went after us because they thought we were easy targets, Jasmine continued. Just another black family they could bully and dismiss. Their mistake, Zara added with renewed determination. As they strategized their response, Malik's lawyer called again with concerning news. The supposedly corrupted security footage from the boarding gate had been mysteriously restored, but appeared to have been edited to remove key interactions that supported the Williams account. They're rewriting history in real time, the lawyer explained. And Judge Peterson has a reputation for accepting corporate evidence without much scrutiny. Outside their hotel window, they could see news vans assembling. The story had become a lightning rod for broader discussions about race, corporate power, and accountability. Malik's phone rang again. Richard Harrington, SkyRoute CEO. Williams, this has gone too far, Harrington began without preamble. People are being stranded, investors are panicking. End this now, and we can make this very profitable for everyone involved. Are you offering a bribe? Malik asked, putting the call on speaker so his daughters could hear. I'm offering a solution, Harrington replied smoothly. A consulting contract for DataEdge to help improve our systems. 7 figures, private settlement, everyone saves face. And the discrimination continues behind closed doors, Malik observed. These are complex systems, Harrington countered. Change takes time. Meanwhile, you're damaging both our companies and frankly, putting your family at risk unnecessarily. The implied threat hung in the air. Thank you for clarifying your position, Malik replied before ending the call. As they contemplated their next move, Jasmine's phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Check your email. You're not alone. She opened her email to find a message from an anonymous account containing dozens of internal SkyRoute documents, training materials, executive communications, and system specifications that confirmed everything they had discovered and more. The email was signed simply, a SkyRoute employee who's witnessed too much. We have a whistleblower, Jasmine announced, her voice rising with renewed hope. As they began reviewing the documents, hotel security called to inform them that representatives from the Department of Justice had arrived, requesting to meet with the family regarding potential civil rights violations. The counterattack had been swift and comprehensive, but the Williams family had something powerful on their side, the truth, and increasingly, the evidence to prove it. Rain pelted the windows of the federal courthouse as the Williams family arrived under police escort. The morning's hearing on SkyRoute's emergency injunction had turned into something much larger after the Department of Justice filed to intervene in the case, citing potential civil rights violations. Inside the courtroom, tensions ran high. SkyRoute's legal team occupied one side, a phalanx of expensive suits and leather briefcases. The Williams family sat opposite with DataEdge's general counsel and 2 DOJ attorneys who had flown in overnight. Judge Franklin Peterson, a stern man in his 60s with a reputation for business-friendly rulings, surveyed the assembled parties with evident irritation. This was supposed to be a straightforward contract dispute, he noted, adjusting his glasses. Now I have civil rights claims, whistleblower allegations, and media camping outside my courthouse. Let's try to maintain some order. SkyRoute's lead attorney rose first. Your Honor, this case is indeed straightforward. Mr. Williams abused his position as CEO to deliberately damage SkyRoute's operations after a routine security procedure. His actions have stranded thousands of passengers and caused millions in damages. We seek immediate relief. Judge Peterson nodded, then turned to DataEdge's attorney. Counselor. Your Honor, the contract between DataEdge and SkyRoute explicitly permits system restriction if the software is being used in a manner that violates federal law. The evidence will show that SkyRoute's algorithms and procedures systematically discriminated against passengers based on race, a clear violation of multiple federal statutes. The judge frowned. Evidence. I was under the impression the security footage was corrupted. At this moment, the courtroom doors opened. A woman in her late 40s entered and walked directly to the DOJ table. She handed them a flash drive, then took a seat behind the Williams family. "Your Honor," the lead DOJ attorney announced, rising to her feet. "We'd like to introduce Elaine Richardson, former training director for SkyRoute Airlines, who has just provided complete, uncorrupted security footage from yesterday's incident, along with internal documents detailing discriminatory practices." SkyRoute's attorneys erupted in objections, which Judge Peterson silenced with a bang of his gavel. "Ms. Richardson," the judge addressed the newcomer directly. "Are you aware that corporate documents are protected intellectual property? Removing them from company premises could constitute theft." Elaine Richardson stood, her voice steady despite her obvious nervousness. "Your Honor, I'm aware that federal whistleblower protections apply when reporting illegal activities. I'm also aware that these documents were already subject to subpoena in 3 previous discrimination cases, but were allegedly lost by SkyRoute Legal during discovery." The courtroom fell silent. Judge Peterson's expression darkened as he turned to SkyRoute's attorneys. "Is this true?" Their lead counsel shuffled papers uncomfortably. "Your Honor, we have no knowledge of any previous." "I have the case numbers and judicial orders right here," Elaine interrupted, handing a folder to the bailiff. "And emails from SkyRoute Legal instructing managers to accidentally misplace the relevant files." Judge Peterson reviewed the documents briefly, his expression growing increasingly grave. "This hearing will recess for 1 hour while I review these materials in my chambers. No one leaves the building." As the judge exited, the courtroom erupted in tense conversations. Richard Harrington approached the Williams family, his face ashen. "This can still be resolved privately," he insisted. "Name your price." "This was never about money," Malik replied calmly. "It's about accountability." "You'll destroy both our companies," Harrington warned. Before Malik could respond, his phone buzzed with breaking news alerts. Major corporations were announcing suspension of their business travel contracts with SkyRoute. A congressional committee had called for emergency hearings on algorithmic discrimination in the transportation industry. SkyRoute stock had been temporarily halted after falling 40%. Outside the courthouse, the story had captured national attention. Hundreds of protesters gathered, many holding signs with the now viral hashtag denied at the gate. Celebrity activists had begun sharing their own experiences of discrimination while traveling. When court resumed, Judge Peterson returned with a markedly different demeanor. "Having reviewed the evidence presented by Ms. Richardson, I am dismissing SkyRoute's emergency injunction request," he announced. "Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the Department of Justice for criminal investigation into potential obstruction of justice and violations of civil rights laws." He turned directly to SkyRoute's executives. "In 30 years on the bench, I have rarely seen such blatant misconduct and disregard for the law." As SkyRoute's legal team huddled in panic, Jasmine nudged her father, showing him her phone screen. Universities that had sent concerning emails about their scholarships were now issuing public statements affirming their commitment to the twins, with several offering additional funds for anti-discrimination initiatives. Meanwhile, Zara received notification that a major tech foundation was offering her a full scholarship and mentorship to develop her algorithm for detecting bias in automated systems. The courthouse steps became the site of an impromptu press conference as the Williams family emerged. Surrounded by supporters and media, Malik stepped to the microphones. "Today marks a beginning, not an end," he stated. SkyRoute Airlines is just one company using one algorithm. But similar systems are making decisions about who gets loans, medical care, housing, and educational opportunities. The bias built into these systems affects millions of lives daily. As he spoke, Elaine Richardson joined them, along with dozens of current and former SkyRoute employees who had come forward with their own testimonies. What had begun as one family's stand against discrimination had catalyzed a movement. Back at SkyRoute headquarters, the board of directors convened an emergency session. By evening, They announced Richard Harrington's resignation and the formation of an independent review committee to overhaul all company policies and algorithms. The Department of Transportation issued emergency guidelines requiring all airlines to audit their passenger screening procedures for potential bias, with substantial penalties for non-compliance. As darkness fell, the Williams family finally returned to their hotel room, emotionally exhausted but vindicated. Malik's phone rang one last time for the day, the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, inviting him to join a newly formed commission on algorithmic equity in public services. "Dad," Jasmine said as he ended the call, "remember when we were just going to tour colleges?" Malik smiled, embracing his daughters. Sometimes the most important education happens outside the classroom. Their college tour would resume tomorrow, delayed but not derailed. And when they arrived at Howard University, they would be welcomed not just as prospective students, but as champions who had challenged a system many thought too powerful to change. 6 months after the Memphis International Airport incident, Malik Williams stood at a podium in Washington, D.C., addressing a packed auditorium at the first National Conference on Algorithmic Justice. Behind him, a large screen displayed the infamous boarding gate video that had now been viewed over 80 million times. "What happened to my family that day was not unique," he began, surveying the diverse crowd of technologists, policymakers, and activists. "What was unique was that we had the resources and platform to fight back. Too many don't." In the front row, Jasmine and Zara sat alongside their mother Monique, all three beaming with pride. The twins had completed their first semester of college, Jasmine at Howard University studying pre-law with a focus on civil rights, and Zara at Spelman College in a specialized program combining computer science and ethics. "Today, I'm pleased to announce that the SkyRoute Passenger Equity Agreement has been finalized," Malik continued. "This comprehensive settlement includes $42 million in compensation for affected passengers, complete overhaul of their algorithms and screening procedures, and the establishment of an independent oversight board with real enforcement powers." Applause rippled through the audience. On stage with Malik sat Patricia Morgan, SkyRoute's new CEO, who had been brought in from outside the industry specifically to lead the airline's transformation. The company's previous leadership had departed amid multiple investigations and shareholder lawsuits. "Our new system eliminates the biased parameters that led to discriminatory outcomes," Patricia explained when it was her turn to speak. "Random security checks are now truly random, with regular audits to verify demographic parity. Staff undergo substantive anti-bias training developed in partnership with civil rights organizations." She paused, looking directly at the Williams family. "Most importantly, we've created transparent accountability mechanisms. Passengers can review their own risk scores, appeal flags, and access all data used in security decisions about them." The transformation hadn't come easily or voluntarily. SkyRoute had initially fought the changes until the financial consequences became unbearable. Major corporate clients had suspended business travel contracts. A class action lawsuit representing thousands of passengers had gained traction. The Department of Justice investigation had uncovered evidence of deliberate obstruction in previous discrimination complaints. With their stock in free fall and bankruptcy looming, SkyRoute's board had finally recognized reality and committed to comprehensive reform. Monique Williams, who had helped draft the legal framework for the settlement, joined her husband on stage to explain the broader implications. "This agreement creates a template for transportation equity across industries," she noted. Already, 2 other major airlines have voluntarily adopted similar measures, and the Department of Transportation is incorporating these standards into upcoming regulations. The conference continued with technical presentations on bias detection tools, legal workshops on algorithmic accountability, and panel discussions featuring affected travelers. What had begun with one family's stand had evolved into a movement reshaping how automated systems impacted millions of lives. During a break, Malik found himself approached by Elaine Richardson, the former SkyRoute training director whose whistleblower testimony had proven decisive. "I almost didn't come forward," she admitted. "I was 3 years from retirement, and I'd seen what happened to previous whistleblowers." "What changed your mind?" Malik asked. "Your daughters," she replied simply. Watching them stand up with such courage, I couldn't stay silent anymore. Elaine now led a non-profit organization supporting corporate whistleblowers, funded partly by the settlement and partly by DataEdge's new ethical technology foundation. The Williams family's ordeal had transformed their lives in unexpected ways. Malik had stepped back from day-to-day operations at DataEdge to focus on the newly established Center for Algorithmic Justice. Monique had shifted her law practice toward technology policy and civil rights cases. But perhaps the most profound changes were in Jasmine and Zara. "Originally, I wanted to be a corporate lawyer because that's where the money was," Jasmine confided during an interview with a documentary crew covering the conference. "Now I understand there are more important forms of wealth than financial." Zara nodded in agreement. "I used to think technology was neutral, just math and logic. Memphis taught me that algorithms encode human values, for better or worse. I want to make sure it's for better." The twins had become reluctant celebrities on their respective campuses, frequently invited to speak about their experience. They'd established a student organization spanning multiple universities, focused on identifying and challenging discriminatory systems. As the conference concluded, attendees gathered for a demonstration of SkyRoute's redesigned boarding process at nearby Reagan National Airport. Transportation Secretary Amanda Chen officially unveiled a new passenger Bill of Rights requiring transparency and equity in all screening procedures. "The technology that sorts and categorizes us is often invisible," Secretary Chen noted. "But its effects are profoundly real. Today marks a commitment to making those systems visible, accountable, and just." Afterward, the Williams family prepared to board a SkyRoute flight back to Memphis, their first time flying the airline since the incident. As they approached the gate, the agent smiled in recognition. "The Williams family," she said warmly, scanning their boarding passes with notable care and respect. "Thank you for everything you've done. You've changed how we operate, for the better." Other passengers, recognizing the family from media coverage, offered words of support and gratitude as they boarded. Some shared their own stories of discrimination, while others simply expressed appreciation for the family's courage. As their plane took off, Malik gazed out the window at the Washington Monument growing smaller below. He thought about the countless travelers who would never know his name but whose journeys would be different because of what had happened at Gate A7 6 months ago. Was it worth it? Monique asked softly, reading his expression as only someone who has shared a life journey can. Malik smiled, squeezing her hand. "Ask me again in 20 years, when our grandchildren fly without being judged by algorithms based on the color of their skin." Behind them, Jasmine and Zara chatted excitedly about upcoming campus initiatives and summer internships with civil rights organizations. Their paths had been forever altered by what began as a simple college tour, transformed through adversity into a defining moment of purpose. As the plane reached cruising altitude, the captain's voice came over the intercom, "Ladies and gentlemen, we're now free to move about the country." For the Williams family, and for countless others who would benefit from their stand against discrimination, those words carried a new and profound meaning. The Williams family's story teaches us powerful truths about modern discrimination. What appears as computer glitches or security protocols often masks systemic bias programmed into the very algorithms governing our daily lives. When Malik discovered discriminatory patterns embedded in SkyRoute systems, he revealed how technology can perpetuate injustice while creating an illusion of objectivity. This story reminds us that privilege isn't just about wealth, it's about the power to challenge systems when they fail us. Most travelers experiencing discrimination lack the corporate leverage Malik wielded. True justice requires accountability for everyone, regardless of status or connections. The twins' journey illustrates how confronting injustice transforms us. What began as college visits became life-defining moments shaping their future careers. Sometimes our most important education happens through lived experience, not classrooms. Perhaps most importantly, this narrative demonstrates that systemic change requires both courage and evidence. Individual stories matter, but lasting transformation demands documenting patterns, building coalitions, and leveraging institutional power toward justice. One family's stand created ripples affecting millions of travelers. What discrimination have you witnessed or experienced in your daily life? Would you have the courage to stand up like the Williams family did? Comment below with your story or thoughts on fighting algorithmic bias in today's world. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share to help others understand these hidden systems of discrimination. Thank you for witnessing this journey toward justice. Together, we can build a more equitable future for everyone.